Paradise isn't a place, it's a feeling. And when that feeling costs you everything, you realize hell can wear the most beautiful disguise. I'm Marcus, and what I'm about to share will change how you think about love, money, and the price of dreams. $5,000 a month seemed like a fortune when I landed in the Philippines. 18 months later, I was broken and wondering how I'd been so blind. This isn't just another expat horror story. It's a warning about what happens when cultural differences meet desperate hearts and empty wallets. If you're thinking about retiring abroad, or if you've ever fallen for someone half your age, this story will either save you or scare you straight. If you're enjoying these raw, hit subscribe buttons and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Your support keeps these honest stories coming. Now let me take you back to the beginning of my beautiful disaster. The money felt different in my hands. $5,000 a month from my government pension, more than I'd ever dreamed of having in retirement. At 59, after spending 30 years as a diesel mechanic, my back was shot but my future looked golden. I'd found Barangay Esperanza through an expat forum, a remote village in the mountains of Nueva Ecija, 4 hours from Manila's chaos. Rice terraces carved into mountainsides, water buffalo grazing in emerald fields, and locals who waved at every passing stranger. My budget was foolproof. Rent, $400 for a concrete house with a garden. Food, $600 for the best meals in the province. Utilities, $200. Transportation and fun, $500. That left me with $3,300 cushion money every month. I was going to live like a king. The bamboo house I rented sat on the edge of the village, overlooking endless rice paddies that turned gold at sunset. My nearest neighbor was 50 meters away, perfect privacy. The air was clean, the people were friendly, and my pension went further than I'd ever imagined. For the first month, I thought I'd cracked the code to retirement paradise. I met Laya at the village market on my second week. She was haggling with a fruit vendor in rapid Tagalog, her voice rising with frustration. When she noticed me watching, her expression shifted completely. "Kuya," she called out, using the respectful term. For older brother, "Can you help me? This man is charging tourist prices." At 26, Laya was beautiful in that effortless way that comes from never having to try. Long black hair, sun-kissed skin, and eyes that seemed to see right through you. She wore a simple sundress that probably cost $5, but looked like $1 million. I stepped in and the vendor immediately lowered his prices. Laya smiled. Not the practiced smile of someone working an angle, but genuine gratitude. "Thank you," she said in perfect English. "I'm Laya Santos. You must be the American everyone's talking about." "Marcus," I replied, suddenly self-conscious, about my gray hair and expanding waistline. "And guilty as charged." We walked through the market together. She showed me which vendors were honest, which fruits were in season, how to tell fresh fish from day old. Her knowledge was impressive, her laugh infectious. "You're different from other foreigners," she said, as we shared a mango from her basket. "Most come here thinking they know everything. You actually listen." That's when I should have asked myself why she was being so friendly to a stranger. Instead, I felt flattered. But here's what I didn't know yet, and this will blow your mind. Laya wasn't just being friendly, she was studying me. Every question about my background, every compliment about my generous spirit, every casual mention of her family's struggles. It was all research. I was being sized up like livestock at auction. The realization would come later. But the trap was already being set. Within a week, Laya was texting me daily. "Good morning, Kuya Marcus," followed by photos of her breakfast, her garden, random thoughts about life. I found myself looking forward to her messages more than my morning coffee. She'd invite me to join her family for dinner, simple meals of rice, fish, and vegetables that somehow tasted better than any restaurant I'd been to. Her mother, Tita Rosa, would beam at me like I was a celebrity. Her father, Tatay Ben, would share stories of his construction work, while her teenage brother, JJ, practiced his English. "You're part of the family now," Laya would say, squeezing my arm as we sat on their bamboo porch watching fireflies dance in the humid evening air. I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: belonging. After my divorce in Tennessee, I'd spent 5 lonely years eating TV dinners and talking to my dog. Now I had a warm, welcoming family who actually wanted me around. The romance bloomed slowly. Stolen glances across the dinner table, her hand brushing mine as she poured my coffee. Long walks through the rice fields where she'd tell me her dreams, opening a small restaurant, sending JJ to college, taking care of her aging parents. "You make me believe in tomorrow again," she whispered one evening as we watched the stars. From my porch, I was falling hard and I didn't care who knew it. The first time we made love, she cried afterward. "What's wrong?" I asked, suddenly terrified I'd done something to hurt her. "Nothing's wrong," she said, tracing circles on my chest. "I just never thought someone could make me feel so safe, so loved." I was 59, she was 26, and none of that mattered. Love doesn't care about spreadsheets or age gaps or cultural differences, or so I told myself. But love is also blind to red flags waving right in front of your face. The first request came 3 weeks after we became official. Lila arrived at my house with tears in her eyes and a doctor's note in her hand. "Tatay Ben needs surgery," she said, her voice breaking. "His gallbladder. The public hospital has a 3-month waiting list, but the private clinic can do it next. Week for 80,000 pesos. 80,000 pesos, about $1,400. A fraction of my monthly pension, but a fortune to her family." "Of course," I said without hesitation. "Family comes first." The relief in her eyes was worth every peso. This wasn't about money. This was about love, about being the man who could solve problems and protect the people who mattered. I handed over the cash and felt like a hero. I should have felt like a fool. Tatay Ben's surgery went perfectly. I visited him in the private clinic, bringing flowers and get-well cards. The family treated me like a saint, and Lila's gratitude was overwhelming. "You saved my father's life," she said, kissing me with tears in her eyes. "I'll never forget this." But saving one life apparently meant signing up to save them all. 2 weeks later, Tita Rosa needed diabetes medication, $200 a month, every month. Then JJ's college tuition was due, $800 for the semester. Then their roof started leaking during typhoon season, $600 for repairs. Each request came with genuine tears, real emergencies, and absolute gratitude when I opened my wallet. I wasn't being scammed, I was being loved, or so it felt. My monthly expenses crept upward. $5,000 became $4,500, became $4,000. But I still had plenty left over, and helping Lila's family felt better than any luxury I could buy for myself. "You're too generous," Lila would say, but her smile told a different story. She was proud of me, proud to have a man who could take care of business. The real shock came when I started doing the math. In 6 months, I'd spent $8,400 on her family's emergencies. That was on top of my regular expenses, which had also grown as I took them out to dinner, bought groceries for their Sunday gatherings, and covered gas for trips to town. My $3,300 monthly cushion had become a $300 monthly prayer. Then I met Carlos, at the Expat bar in the nearest city, 2 hours away. He'd been living in the Philippines for 5 years, married to a local woman, and he took one look at my situation and started laughing. "Brother," he said, shaking his head, "you're being played harder than a fiddle at a country dance." "What do you mean?" I asked, already feeling defensive. "Emergency surgery that couldn't wait for the public hospital, tuition that had to be paid immediately, a roof that needed fixing right before typhoon season?" He counted on his fingers. "Those aren't coincidences, man. That's a business plan." I wanted to punch him. How dare he suggest that Lila was manipulating me? He didn't know her like I did. He didn't see the love in her eyes or feel the warmth of her family. But his words planted a seed of doubt that grew like cancer. I started paying attention to details I'd ignored. How Lila always knew exactly when emergencies would cost before getting quotes. How her family's problems always had convenient price tags that matched my monthly surplus. How other expats in town gave me knowing looks when they saw us together. The final piece clicked when I overheard Tita Rosa talking to her sister in Tagalog. I'd picked up enough of the language to understand the key phrase, Americano na mayaman, rich American. They weren't talking about me like family, they were talking about me like a resource. I didn't want to believe it. Love makes you stupid, and I was valedictorian of that particular school, but the evidence kept mounting. I started tracking every peso. Medical bills that perfectly matched my available cash. School fees that came due exactly when my pension hit my account. Emergency repairs that happened right after I mentioned having extra money. The pattern was undeniable. The confrontation came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Lila arrived at my house with another crisis. Her aunt needed chemotherapy, $2,000 immediately, or she'd die. "Marcus," she said, crying those perfect tears that had moved me so many times before, "I hate asking, but you're the only one who can help." Something inside me snapped. "Stop," I said quietly. She looked confused. "Stop what?" "Stop lying to me." My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. "Stop pretending this is about love, when it's really about money." The mask slipped for just a second. I saw calculation in her eyes where I'd only seen affection before. Then it was back, the tears, the hurt expression, the wounded innocence. "How can you say that?" she whispered. "After everything we've shared, after how much I care about you. If you care about me, tell me the truth." I pulled out my phone and showed her my banking app. "In 8 months, I've spent $15,000 on your family's emergencies. My savings are gone. My cushion money is gone. I'm living paycheck to paycheck." For the first time in my life. She stared at the screen and I watched her do the math. $15,000 was more money than her family had ever seen in one place. "I never asked you to," she started. "You didn't have to ask," I interrupted. "You just had to cry and I'd hand over my wallet like a trained monkey." What happened next still gives me chills. Lila sat down on my couch and for the first time in our relationship told me the complete truth. "There is no aunt with cancer," she said, her voice flat and emotionless. "There never was." The words hit me like a physical blow. Tate Ben did need surgery, but the public hospital would have done it for free. We chose the private clinic because we knew you'd pay for it. The roof repairs? We broke some tiles ourselves and waited for the next storm. JJ's tuition? He's on a scholarship. That money went to pay off family debts. I sat there listening to the woman I loved systematically destroy every shared memory we had, every emergency, every crisis, every moment where I'd felt like a hero. It was all a lie. "Why?" I asked, and I sounded like a broken man because that's exactly what I was. "Because you made it easy," she said with a shrug that cut deeper than any knife. "You wanted to be the savior, the rich American who could fix everything. We just gave you what you wanted. And the love, was any of it real?" She looked at me for a long time before answering. "I cared about you, Marcus. I really did. But caring about someone and loving them, those are different things. You were kind, generous, lonely. You made me feel important. But love," she shook her head, "love doesn't come with a price tag." Lila left that night and I never saw her again. No dramatic goodbye, no final confrontation. She just packed the few things she kept at my house and walked out into the rain, sat alone in my bamboo house, listening to the drops hit the roof, and took inventory of what my paradise had cost me. Financially, $15,000 in direct payments, plus thousands more in inflated living expenses. My emergency fund was gone. My safety net was gone. I was 59 years old, living in a foreign country, with no backup plan and no one to blame but myself. Emotionally, I'd fallen in love with a fantasy. The warm, accepting family, the beautiful woman who made me feel young again, the sense of purpose and belonging. All of it was a performance, and I'd been the only one in the audience who didn't know it was a show. The village treated me differently. After word got out, no more friendly waves, no more invitations to family dinners. I'd gone from being the generous American to being the stupid American, and everyone knew it. I considered going home to Tennessee. I had enough left for a plane ticket and maybe 2 months' rent back in the States. But then what? Admit to my ex-wife that she was right about my crazy retirement plan? Face my old friends who'd warned me about foreign women? Start over with nothing at 59? Instead, I made a different choice. I decided to rebuild, but this time with my eyes wide open. I moved to a smaller house in a different village, $200 a month instead of $400. I started cooking all my own meals instead of eating out. I cut every unnecessary expense and rebuilt my emergency fund peso by peso. It took 8 months to get back to financial stability. 8 months of living like a monk, questioning every purchase, saving every spare peso. But more importantly, it took that long to rebuild my sense of self-worth. To stop feeling like a victim and start feeling like a survivor, I learned Tagalog properly this time. Not just the polite phrases and romantic words, but the real language that people use when they think you can't understand them. I learned to recognize the difference between genuine friendship and profitable friendness. I started dating again, but with boundaries this time. No financial help, no emergency loans, no playing the hero, and slowly, carefully, I began to enjoy my retirement again. Not the fantasy version where I was everyone's savior, but the real version where I was just a man living within his means in a beautiful country. Here's what I wish someone had told me before I stepped off that plane. Your money makes you attractive in ways that have nothing to do with love. When you're earning more in a month than most families see in a year, every relationship becomes complicated by economics, whether you want it to or not. Cultural differences aren't just about language and food. They're about fundamental expectations of how relationships work, how families support each other, and what obligations come with love. Generosity and stupidity often look identical from the outside. Being able to afford something doesn't mean you should pay for it. The most expensive lesson I learned? Love doesn't require you to go broke proving it. I've been in the Philippines for 3 years now. I live comfortably on $2,800 a month, have a solid emergency fund, and even have a girlfriend, Maria, a widow my age, who has her own income and her own life. We split dinner bills. We each pay our own way on trips. When her grandson needed school supplies, she saved up for them herself. And somehow, this feels more loving than all the dramatic emergencies and grateful tears I experienced with Lila. Real love doesn't come with a price tag, but fake love always does. The Philippines is still paradise, just not the paradise I thought I was buying. It's a place where genuine friendships can form, where life can be simple and beautiful, where retirement can be everything you dreamed of, but only if you're smart enough to know the difference between investing in a relationship and being invested. In my $5,000 a month dream in the Philippines turned into a $15,000 nightmare because I forgot the one rule no expat should ever ignore. Money makes you a target. I arrived thinking my pension would buy me paradise, and for a while it did. The early mornings spent wandering jasmine-scented paths, the evenings listening to distant roosters, the simple thrill of learning Tagalog phrases. All of it felt like a fairy tale funded by my government pension. But paradise isn't measured in pesos. It's protected by boundaries. Along the way, I learned that generosity without guardrails invites the very trouble you hope to escape. If you're planning your own escape abroad, remember what mine cost me. Protect your wallet as fiercely as you protect your heart. I opened my bank account to solve one problem, only to discover dozens more I never even knew existed. Everyday emergencies, real or manufactured, can wear you down until you wake up one day with an empty balance and a broken spirit. Treat your savings like sacred ground. Decide in advance how much you're willing to give and never exceed that limit, no matter how heartbreaking the story. Ask hard questions before you hand over cash, no matter how convincing the crisis sounds. When Lila arrived with tears and medical bills, I believed every word. Next time I'd pause. I'd verify hospital schedules, check scholarship records, even ask for a second opinion. A genuine plea for help can wait for proof. When in doubt, step back and gather facts, because compassion without clarity can be your undoing. Value real connection over convenient emergencies. True friendship doesn't depend on your bank balance. Seek relationships where laughter, shared meals, and mutual support matter more than monetary rescue. If someone's affection turns on your ability to pay, it isn't love, it's a business transaction wrapped in sentiment. Today, 3 years later, I live on $2,800 a month. I've rebuilt my savings from scratch. Every peso earned, every bill paid on time, every rice and vegetable meal cooked at home. I share my life with Maria, a strong, independent woman whose income matches her spirit. When her grandson needed new shoes, she found a way without asking me for a peso. With her, there are no staged emergencies, only honest conversations and genuine laughter over home-cooked adobo. That is the real paradise I found, one earned by lessons learned the hard way. It's a life where I wake up not worrying about what I owe, but looking forward to what I'll give. My time, my attention, and my genuine self. Have you ever faced a similar expat trap? Perhaps you felt the sting of misplaced generosity or watched your nest egg vanish in a whirlwind of crises. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what you've learned. Your story could be the warning that saves someone else from the same pitfall. Hit subscribe for more unfiltered expat confessions, because the best advice I can give is what I wish someone had told me before I landed in that bamboo house. Stay smart, stay skeptical, and guard your dreams, because paradise isn't for sale. It's built on wisdom, honesty, and boundaries you refuse to cross.